If only they knew. The hub for young business minds.
Yes, people, it's Ted Lawler, and welcome back to the If Only They Knew podcast, sponsored by MindSky, the mindset and well-being platform that is helping thousands of people with their mental health. Today, we're joined by Jenny Nineting, the founder of the Nutcracker Agency, who talks to us today about the steps that young people should take if they want to set up their own business, the impact that ego has on our success, and so much more. So if you're looking to figure out your why, this is the podcast for you. Right, thank you so much for coming on. If you don't mind, for the sakes of everyone listening, if you could explain briefly who you are and what you do.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me, Ted.
That's all right.
So I'm Jenny Nighting. I'm founder and CEO of Nutcracker Agency. Nutcracker focuses on delivering, as it's young audience shit hot, no one could be offended at that, surely. Amazing marketing that gets results for businesses. We look at doing marketing, but in a slightly different way, where it really does look at getting results for businesses. So it's not kind of like nice to have where you kind of tick it off a list. It's like, what leads have you got? How have you generated it? And we do that across all areas of marketing, from social media through to content, through to kind of design, all aspects. And I've been doing that for the last 6.5 years. And that's probably have to go on, but that's probably enough of an intro.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you. Before we do get on to sort of what you do and some of the great work, I always think it's important to rewind the clocks a bit and sort of understand what someone was like to then understand what they're like now. So if you don't mind, what was a younger Jenny like at school? What was you interested in? Was you smart? Was you naughty, much like I was? What was you like?
So I've always had quite a big personality, I guess. Like, I've always had quite a lot to say. And little Jenny was no different. So, you know, I think for me, it's like, I always wanted to be one of those kind of girls who the teachers loved, who just seemed to just say that, I don't know, but I was never that person. I guess I always had something to say. I always had quite an inquisitive mind, but if I wasn't engaged, I found it quite easy to daydream and drift off. So then obviously I found it hard. So I think with me, like, I found it quite hard to sit still when I was little, and I found it hard to concentrate if I wasn't massively interested. So I think when I was engaged, I was brilliant, brought loads to the table, like, asked those questions, I loved it, got really passionate about it. If I wasn't, I was probably quite difficult to teach.
Yeah.
For me, like, I was obsessed with sport. So I lived for sport. So, yeah, I mean, I was on all the sports teams, and I guess competitive sport and team sport really shaped a lot of my school years because I loved it so much.
Was it to do with the competition, do you think, then? Or what was it like about sport?
You know, not so much competition. I mean, of course, I am a highly, I was about to say it's not competition, but anyone that knows me, listens to this, will just laugh. I mean, I am highly competitive, but I like team sports the most. Like, I do like, I know it sounds a bit cliche, but I do love being part of a team. I do like being part of it, all in it together. We want to win, like supporting it all. And if we're losing, like trying really hard if we're winning. I did individual sports too, but I've always loved team sports the best. Yeah, so I was just massively into sport, tried my best at school. Sometimes didn't always endear myself to teachers, but I did try.
A lot of the people that come on here, I sort of always find out that they were the ones that were sort of doing things on the sideline at school. So not only were they doing sports, but they was also selling sweets and drinks and stuff like that. Was that something you was up to, or was that not so much?
Not really. I mean, like, I think like if it was a cakes, like charity cake stall, I'd be quite obsessed that my cakes sold the best. But then I guess that was down to like my mum that cooked them. But yeah, like, I was always be like, yeah, my cake sold out first. But you know, I mean, not really, not so much. I mean, if there was initiatives, I was always kind of in the thick of it, wanting to get involved. So like, if there was something I guess was extra curriculum, I'd be like all over it. But no, I wouldn't say. I mean, having said that, like, I did teach tennis to my sister's friends when I was really young and charged the parents for that. Really? And I did start my first job when I was like 15. I mean, not proper job, like I was still at school, but so I suppose I'm saying that, but actually I did start earning money from quite a young age, actually.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm glad you said that, because it is weird. Like, there's always something that the people that I have on, they always did something almost that showed their proactiveness and they're willing to.
I mean, it was amazing. Like, I taught this, my school friend's sister, sorry, my sister's school friend's sister, and I was charging her parents like £5 an hour when I was quite young, and it was just brilliant. I
That's a
just
lot of
couldn't
money
quite,
as a kid.
it was. There was a lot of money to go to like Greenwich Park and
Yeah,
teach someone tennis.
No,
So yeah, I guess you're right. I guess I did
yeah.
do some quite quirky stuff like that.
Yeah. And then how about fast forward a little bit? Like, what was some of the qualifications that you're better at? Like, was it business, or did you do well at PE, or what did you sort of carry on doing?
So I guess I've always had a talent for like humanities. So anything that was English based or kind of factual, but a bit more subjective. So
Yeah.
like even geography, like I know that's more factual, but you still have to write.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've always had more affinity for kind of humanities subjects. I do like the fact with maths it can be right or wrong, and if you know how to do it, it's easy. But I just don't think, I think my brain is much more creative and humanity based rather than kind of the sciences. Having said that, like as an adult, I actually find science really interesting, but I think that's because my attention span is so much better now, whereas as a child quite hard, isn't it? Like physics is quite complicated or whatever. So I think, so I definitely had an affinity for English and things like that. When I did my GCSEs and went on to do my A-levels, I was drawn to kind of politics and philosophy and English and those kinds of subjects. I went on to do a politics and sociology degree. So I guess I've always been interested in subjects where I guess you've kind of got to put an argument forward in some way. Like English is quite argument based, isn't it, around what someone's trying to achieve with something. Politics is clearly argument based, and I think I've always found that kind of analysis quite interesting, like analysing why someone's writing something or saying something, what the meaning is. And I guess that kind of aligns to my initial career, which is as a salesperson, because that is part and parcel of crafting, like kind of really engaging type sales emails to get people's attention, like talking. I'm good at talking.
Yeah. No, I think like I'm glad I asked that question, because I feel like you're sort of interested in the same things as me. And for me, you may disagree, but all those subjects like English and, like you said, the ones that you can be creative with, sociology, it was almost like a safety blanket, because I couldn't be wrong. Like it was my sort of idea. If you didn't agree with it, I still get marks because of the way I presented the argument. Whereas maths, I could be wrong or right.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I hadn't thought of it like that.
Yeah.
And I think like the thing for me is that I find like English, when I find it quite easy to get lost in English, I'd get lost in books or lost in writing or lost in like imagination. And I've always been quite a creative, imaginative person. I've always been prone to kind of daydream or thinking about things. And I mean, I don't really get the chance now, but I think for me, like that's a good outlet. So those subjects, they didn't feel like work. They felt much more like I was doing something I loved.
Well, let's talk about after sort of the educational period, you then went to do some work. And am I right in saying you've done a lot of work mainly with like sort of startup companies? Is that right?
Yeah, so I guess some of them weren't. Like my first proper job after university was with kind of a really established exhibition organizer, family run business. It was really quirky. I loved it. But after that, actually while I was there, they sold the show I was working on to a really big event organizer, big corporate. And it was a real chalk and cheese moment of seeing what a small business was like to what a big business was like. And I just preferred a smaller business. So I think I preferred the culture of a more agile business where, your voice counted more, you could make a difference. And so I guess I've always been drawn to kind of small, hungry businesses. And then I went on to work for a company again, which was established, a really strong team. But I got to launch events. So it was kind of a startup within an established business, so I enjoyed that. And then I was given autonomy, and probably my favourite job outside of owning my own business and I was given a lot of autonomy by the owner there to kind of just go off and almost make the job my own. Yeah. So I guess I've worked in businesses where I've had a lot of autonomy and I've had control over what I do, rather than being startup as such, albeit I have worked at startups. So I was involved with 2 ex-colleagues on a startup event business. The job before Nutcracker was a startup online news site. So yeah, kind of a mixture of both, I guess.
Do you think that was sort of almost a way to, I don't know how the best way to put it is, but it's almost like a tester for you running a business, like all those working in a small environment where you could really get hands-on and take on quite a bit of work and responsibility. Do you think in some ways, whether you sort of subconsciously thought it or not, it was a way to sort of see if you're ready to own your own business, because you're pretty much doing that in a startup to some extent, you know?
Yeah, you are. I mean, I guess the major difference is the buck doesn't stop with you, right? So you're so cushioned. But I think maybe, but I also think it's because I like a challenge. I get bored easily, and jobs with established teams, established businesses, very rarely is it innovative or different, or, you know, as long as you're kind of getting A to B, I'm going to offend so many people. Obviously it's challenging, but it's not the same as, if you don't do that, this will not happen, you know. And that's what kind of startups were. So I think I've always loved that kind of challenge. I work best under pressure. I like to feel ownership of things, and, you know, of course, with smaller businesses or startups, you feel absolute ownership. So I think the characteristics involved in kind of startup business were just more naturally, or startup product, were more naturally suited to my attributes. But yeah, I guess you're right. I always knew I was going to have my own business, and I always knew I wanted to. I guess the major difference is that when I worked with two ex-colleagues on this event business, which I had, you know, shareholdings in, it was kind of, you know, it was part of my business too. It was a bit misleading, really, because they did all the hard work. They did all, like, the, you know, the finances and making sure the investment was in, like juggling it all. And I guess that was kind of misleading, because I felt like it was my business and I was having all that pressure. But I wasn't really, because they were doing the stuff which is really difficult. Whereas what I had to do was create and make money out of nowhere. Well, that's what I'm good at. So that's kind of a comfort blanket. Whereas with Nutcracker, it's completely different, because the buck stops with me. Like, I have to do everything, the warts and all, you know. So I guess nothing can prepare you for that, and nothing can prepare you for what it's like, and just how different it is to working for somebody.
Even I had that at my last 9 to 5. It got to a point, you know, when you get really comfortable in your role and you start taking on a bit more work, and you think, oh, why am I not the manager here? Like, I could easily do the manager's job, because where it's being taken care of almost for you and behind the scenes, like you said, you almost get comfortable with what you're doing and think that you can easily go to the next role. And it's when, like for me, when I sort of got closer to that next role, you realize, oh, okay, there's a lot more that needs to be done. And it's like you said, it's the same with running the business. You realize all the little things, when someone else isn't doing it, you have to do it. And if you don't do it, it affects everything else. So all the small cogs affect the massive cogs.
100%. And I think if you've got a good leader, it's their responsibility to keep their team motivated and keep them upbeat. So a good leader will naturally keep away that stuff from people, which means you're even more cushioned, because you're not seeing what goes on. So I think it's interesting you saying that about when you were in that role and you want to get to manager. I think it's true. I think it's true of all levels. You don't realise exactly what the difference is until you do it.
Do you think then, as a business owner yourself, do you think that other business owners should, especially if it's more of a startup, that they should almost, it may be shooting themselves in the foot, but almost like cater for everyone below them, if you want to put it that way, to sort of help them realize what's coming up next, so they can sort of have someone that comes in at a junior level and they can really sort of take them under their wing and say, okay, this is what you need to do at the manager level. Takes 2 or 3 years to get there. Once you hit that level, that's what you need to do, and sort of provide that path for them. Because a lot of business owners, from what I've seen, my experience, they sort of bring in a junior level, but they almost don't want them to get any further. They like the juniors being junior and then moving on. They don't, for some reason, from what I've seen, they don't like that level of growth. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, Nutcracker is very different in a sense that it's all about growth and about getting to the next level. And, you know, I would say that it's pretty laid out in terms of, you're here, this is how you get to here, and this is how you're going to get there. And, you know, with Nutcracker, it isn't so much about how long you've done the job, it's about what are you doing in that job. So if you look at my current fabulous account manager, she joined with a year's experience as account executive. She was rapidly promoted to senior account executive and made account manager level far quicker than other organisations. But that's because she was thrown in the deep end. She had a good strategic brain. She was bright. Well, she's still very bright. She's very strategic. She's bloody brilliant. But she had all the right attributes to get promoted quickly, and she wanted to. She wanted to know how to do it. And that, to me, is a perfect person to have on the team, because they're hungry, they're driven, they know they need to improve, they need to scale up. And I think that's brilliant. I think the difference is that we think everybody's like that. And some people don't have that natural personality to be able to take on board feedback, be able to take on board the fact that they're not the dog's dangly bits and they've got a way to go. And I think it has to be a two-way street. You have to have someone prepared to say, right, you're on this job title right now. I get you want to get to there. This is how you'll get there. But I think you equally need to have some receptive in that position to say, okay, right, I'm going to work really hard to get there. Like, I think it has to be a two-way thing.
No, 100%. I agree with that as well. What sort of, talking about that drive, hunger, what do you think makes not just necessarily a good employee, but just a good worker overall, whether they're the business owner, the junior level manager? What do you think makes that good worker? The drive, the hunger, and
So I think it's lots of different traits. I think knowing that you have to lead by example is really important.
yeah,
Like, if you can't walk the walk, then don't talk the talk. Like, I think leading by example in whatever role you do matters. Like, put your money where your mouth is. I think losing your ego. I think I haven't got a lot of time for people whose egos lead. Like, actually be a team player, help out your colleagues, like, go the extra mile. It's not all about, you know, your glory road show. I think having attention for detail and understanding the impact of mistakes and sloppy work, I think that's really important. And I think things like poor timekeeping and just, you know, stuff like that is just disrespectful. So I think being punctual sends a signal out that that you're respecting what you're doing, you're respecting your time, respecting your colleagues' time. So I think good timekeeping can often be undervalued, and people can think, oh, I've been so difficult because my bus was late. And it's like, it's a respect thing, isn't it? It's like, we've all been there, like, we've all gone to bed a bit late and not been able to get, like, but it's about what message you're sending out to your colleagues. So I think it's a few things, and I think it's about understanding that work is a place where you should be able to have a good time as well as work hard. So actually, what are you bringing to that? What banter are you bringing? What kind of energy are you bringing? You know, like, I'd rather work with someone that lifts me up, who is 30% as talented as someone that's just obnoxious every day of the week. You know, because actually the atmosphere really affects the output.
Yeah, it does. And like you said, I think it definitely is a two-way stream. Like, if you like, again, from my own experience, that some people in the team will be like, yeah, I want a fun workplace. All right, but you don't talk. Like, you don't actually provide anything to contribute to that workplace. So there's sort of a disconnect there. Like you said, if you want something, you need to be able to contribute towards that as well. You know, it's a two-way stream.
Exactly. And I think it's about understanding that, you know, the best way people are going to enjoy work is if they feel that they're nailing it. Like, if they feel they're achieving their objectives, they will feel good about work. So I think first and foremost, to have people that are really enjoying what they do, they have to have clear objectives, clear lines of what success looks like, clear lines of what good work looks like, and then they can achieve it. Because I think the biggest demotivating factor for anybody is feeling like they're not doing a good job, because your self-esteem plummets, you feel fearful of your future, like, it makes you insecure. So actually, I think the first starting point before anything is making sure that a team knows exactly what's expected of them. Because then when someone turns around and says something like, you know, want it to be fun, it's like, okay, great, what's your idea then? What's your initiative? What are you going to do? And actually, you'll find that if people do a good job, they don't say things like that because they're naturally enjoying what they do and being part of something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well. Like, again, from experience, when things aren't going so well in terms of motivation in the office, there's always that underlying thing, you know. But for you, I wanted to ask, how long did you actually have the idea, or just not necessarily of the exact business, but just of maybe even the want of running your own business? Because I know for me, when I was working my 9-to-5s, my retail jobs, that was always in the back of my mind. So I think quite fortunately, I was able to say, okay, I'm learning this for my 9-to-5, but really all I'm thinking is I'm going to use that for when I get home and I get on my laptop and start my own business. So yeah, how long did you sort of have that idea in the back of your head for?
No, it wasn't quite so cut and dry for me. Like, I knew I wanted to have a rapid rise up in my career. Like I said, I'm going to be director of business by 25. I've owned a business by 30. I'm going to do that. I had benchmark ages, you know, and I achieved them. But when I had my own business with 2 colleagues before, I wasn't ready for it. I hadn't learned what I needed to learn. I was absolutely incredible at closing deals and at bringing money into businesses, but I hadn't learned what I needed to do the rest of it. So I wasn't ready. So I think for me, I always knew I wanted to do it. And with Nutcracker, the job I had before I founded Nutcracker was a really interesting steep learning curve for me, where I was going and doing something I'd never done before and doing it really well. But it opened up a new industry to me, which made me see how badly agencies were doing things. Not all the time, like I worked with some talented agencies, but I saw an awful lot of rubbish where you'd have people that were disenchanted, they weren't interested in their clients, they're just too busy talking about how hungover they were, and it's just like, goodness me, like, don't drink then. So like, I think I always wanted to do, I was always going to do something like Nutcracker, but it wasn't as cut and dry, I think, because every job I've ever had, without exception, apart from a couple which were poor choices and I moved on before probation, but the ones which I committed to and really did, I loved those businesses as much as if it were my own. So it wasn't like I was doing it while looking ahead, I was doing it while living it and really loving my job,
Right,
you know, giving it my all. So it was a bit different, but I always knew I would do something like Nutcracker.
Yeah. On that point, did you say, what was it you was good at? More sales, like closing the deals, getting the contracts in? Was that sort of your...
Well, I started off my career firmly in sales, but very quickly, like the project side came into it. So when I used to do events, I would naturally get, maybe because I'm just a gobby little poo head, I don't know, but I'd naturally get involved in all other areas. And I naturally went down the kind of the creative marketing side of what was happening.
Right.
And then, so I think I built up a lot of skills through the jobs I had to do, a lot more marketing I'd realised I've been doing alongside my sales, but I do love sales, got to be honest. And then I switched over to incorporate marketing probably about, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, and then became a marketing director as well as a sales director. And I'm as passionate about marketing as I am about sales, and I'm passionate about marketing if it's done in a commercial way, like if there's a real purpose to it.
Right.
And then I get a real buzz from it because you can see the impact you're having on businesses. Basically, I love business growth. I love seeing businesses succeed and grow. And marketing plays an intrinsic role in that.
I'm sort of skipping ahead here. I normally leave like the actual like hands-on advice until a little bit later on. But on that point, I have to sort of dive into that a little bit deeper. In terms of business growth, what have been some of the things that you've seen to work when businesses try and grow, especially in today's age? A lot of the people listening will probably have quite small companies based on social media. So do you have any advice sort of for those guys listening?
I think a lot of people get too caught up in saying I've got my own business rather than what is the business and what you're trying to achieve. Like, to grow and run a successful business, you have to kind of do the boring stuff. You need to have a strategy, you need to understand your audience, you need to understand who your customer base is, you need to understand how you're going to get to market, you need to understand what sales you need to generate to be able to, you know, like, you have to get your ducks in a row properly first and really understand what it is you need to achieve. I work with so many businesses who might have great propositions, but when you drill down, they couldn't really tell you exactly who their ideal customer is. Well, for me, that's a starting point. You need to understand exactly who it is you're selling to, so that all touch points around your business are going to achieve that. So whatever message you're putting out, if it's a social media based business, do you really understand who your customer base is? Or are you kind of wishing that's your customer base? Is it really your customer base? Like, have you really got it nailed? Do you really know where your customers are spending time? Or are you assuming that all your customers are like you? Like, you need to kind of separate the two and really understand exactly who your demographic is. And also, I think where businesses go wrong is they're too busy talking about themselves. But me, I'm great, buy me, buy me, buy me. They're not thinking about, what's the pain point? Why should their proposition matter? Like, why should people buy it? How can they resonate? And people don't write really interesting things about businesses. They write kind of quite formulaic stuff around, this is the, you know, the standard marketing spiel that gets rolled out, rather than something a bit interesting. Like, everyone's too scared to say anything in case it's remotely controversial or in any way that people just stick so firmly to vanilla they don't get heard. And there's got to be an in between.
Well, there's so many points I could pick up on that. I think one of the things I wanted to say when you're talking about that, and I'll probably get cancelled for saying this, but I fall into this box as well. But I think a lot of people my age, the 20 sort of mark, the early teens, late teens, I feel like you said, they want to say they've got they want to set up a business just to say they've got a business, and the business is more about feeding their ego and sort of saying, look, I'm a CEO. But you can't be a CEO if the company's not registered, you know. And I've seen that a lot, and I think that is when you're talking about tips of business growth, I think that's the biggest error, because you can't grow a business that isn't really a business if your heart's not in it. What's the point? Like, you're just doing it. And I fall into this as well. I've got the media group, I've got the podcast, but for me, it's not a business, it's a project. So I think my message to everyone listening, and again, like, you can shoot me if you want, but I'm just saying it, like, get real about your business. If it is a business, it's a proper business. And like you said, do your research, do it the hard way, do it the long way, make sure you do it right. Don't just put something out, just say, oh yeah, I've got a business, you know?
Yeah, I mean, statistics show that, you know, very few businesses make it past the first year, let alone 5-year mark. And that's because of this kind of, you know, like you've said, oh, I own my own business. I did some work for Young Enterprise Charity because I'm passionate about getting young people, you know, into business as a career. And there'd be other business advisors, and I said, what do you do? And they're one-man bands. I think, well, how can you advise these young people when, you know, like, I'm not saying you can't add value, but actually, for someone to give me advice, they'd need to have walked in my shoes. They'd need to have, you know, employed people. They'd need to have scaled a business. They'd needed to have the challenges I've had. You know, they'd need to have an idea, brought it to market, quit their jobs and done it, and got offices. And like, you know, like you have to learn stuff, and the only way to do it is to do it yourself. But there's too much fixation on ego, and that's what I was saying to you at the start of when we started earlier on about one of my pet hates is ego. Like, what does it matter if you're an exec or a CEO? Like, what does it really matter? It doesn't change what work you're doing. It's just your insecurity of feeling like you need to say, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Oh, my handbag's like. Where do you draw the line? Like, are you defined because of your trainers, or are you defined because of what comes out your mouth? Like, what really matters? And actually, if you're not ready to run a business, go and get paid by someone else and learn it from them, and then do it. And be proud to say, yeah, I'm quite junior because I'm 19, I'm 20, I'm 21. Like, that's normal, right? That's really normal. But have ambition, like start a business at 21 and say, right, I really want to get promoted to be a manager by the time I'm 22. How do I do that? The employer will value that ambition, but they won't value it if that's walking over other people and diminishing experience and diminishing stuff. Because actually, just like energy brings a lot to the table, so does experience, and you need both. You know, because actually, if you don't have the experience, you make glaring errors and obvious mistakes because everybody does if they've not done it before. That doesn't make someone bad at their job. That makes them normal.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so glad you said that, and also the point about young enterprise as well, because that was sort of going to be one of the things I wanted to get from you. Like, how important is it to get experience at a young age? And it sounds like from what you said there, very important, especially if you have got further goal in mind, you know?
It's so important. I think that for young people, I don't want to like make it like I'm some granny, but I think for young, I hate all this age stuff, but it's my big thing I'm ranting about at the moment, but we won't start there. But the thing at the moment, I think for young people that's really hard is that, you know, you've got generations coming through that grew up communicating on social media. They didn't grow up communicating face to face or whatever. Like, grew up, a WhatsApp conversation is a conversation, Instagram is a conversation. Whereas obviously, I think that gives people a bit of a disadvantage because it means social skills aren't as strong. It means that because it's so easy to put a photo up of yourself or record a video and think that you're kind of famous, well, not really, no. I think people's egos have kind of led ahead of reality, which is that just because you've got a filter on doesn't suddenly make you Kate Moss. Like, I think there's reality has got a bit distorted with digital and the pressures that young people are under. And I think that there's so much pressure on young people now because, you know, there's so much talk around job insecurities, around, you know, not enough jobs to go around the pressure of this image you have to put out across your social media. There's so much mental health problems amongst young people because of all the pressures of social media, and there's too much pressure on young people to have to give this image. And what I would say is, if you've got a belief and a passion, you want to do something, that is brilliant. But what does that really mean? Are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you really passionate about it? Do you want to do it? Do you have the right skills? If you do, really think about it. Don't do it because of your ego, because you can put on your Instagram you're this. Do it because that is what you want to do with your life, and that is what's going to make you happy.
I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast will be laughing a lot when I say this, because I always sort of end up turning it into my own sort of personal therapy session. But
yeah, but that's what you want to do, right? And I love that. So carry on.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think, just again, like, because a lot of some people, that's what I said before we started recording. I said I started this podcast to sort of give that real insight, because I felt like a lot of other podcasts were sort of saying what they thought they wanted people to hear. But yeah, hopefully someone gets some advice from what I'm about to say, some value from what I'm about to say now. But like you said about the image, I keep deleting and like restoring my Instagram account, because one moment I think, yeah, I'll post this photo in front of this and I'll do that and that, and like try and create that image, and then something will click and I think, oh, what am I doing this for? Like, it's not benefiting me at all. I get less than 100 likes. I might get a few comments. That feeds my ego for about 10 minutes. And
Or
then I
it
end up
doesn't, or it
closing my
makes you
account.
feel, or it makes you feel crap. And you think,
Exactly
why are
that.
people not, like, I think we live our lives, I think there's a danger to live too much in a goldfish bowl,
Yeah.
and not to think, this is my life, this is my destiny, what do I want to get out of my life? And with Nutcracker, like, Nutcracker's won countless awards, you know, it's done well, but it's not Apple, it's not it's not, you know, the FTSE 100 company. It's a business that is still in business 6.5 years later, so I'm doing something right. It's got great atmosphere, it's got great people at it, we do some exceptional work for our clients, but I don't think I've got it all sewn up. I don't think I've got it all made. I'm not sitting around going, aren't I great, someone tell me great. Like, it's hard work. Like, it's hard work. We've just gone through COVID, we go through stuff. It's not about image, it's about what is it you really want to do with your life, you know, what do you really want to get out of it? Is that Instagram picture going to make you happy, or going to make you feel a bit pissed off that people aren't liking it, a bit crap, or like you've got no friends, or that someone's not going to like you because your top wasn't right? Like, it's such shallow crap that just doesn't matter. And I think that you can buy into all this shallow rubbish that's just going to make you feel just rubbish, or you can have something authentic and something real. And I think that for young people, having something authentic and real is going to nurture their souls, going to make them feel, you know, like they matter. It's going to make them feel so much more valued than whether a string of pointless filtered pictures is seen by a handful of people that really don't care because they're too busy worrying about their own insecurities, their own issues, to even care about yours. Like, I just think I'd like to give people a bit more substance, a bit more realness to their lives.
Well, that's some great advice. And you mentioned sort of getting advice before, and it's definitely something I wanted to bring up now. Like, where do you get your advice from? Or has it just come from your experience over time? Like, especially when you were setting up the business, what was that whole process like? And where was you getting advice from, particularly at that stage? Because I know for me, I'm setting up a new business now, and there's so much I don't know, like even like registering the business, all those little things, let alone all the bigger, wider things like how to do the marketing and all that. So sort of how did you get that? Was it from experience or?
So I guess I had a massive advantage in the sense that I had all that experience. Like, let's be real, it's a big advantage. But I think also, like, when I touched on the fact that I did this event business for a bit, before that I knew I was good at my job because I could bring in a lot of money in sales. But I had the comfort factor. I used to sell events which were branded by the CBI, which is Credited British Industry, so massively well respected, massively well thought of. So if I'm calling up a senior person at Barclays Bank and saying I'm calling on behalf of the CBI, they're going to take my phone call. If I'm then good at selling, they're going to buy from me. So the door is kind of opened for you because you've got that credibility. Whereas when I did my events business, it was a launch company, launch events, launch everything. I had to build database, I had to find the right people, I had to do all prospecting myself. And I gave myself a timeline of 6 months to put the event on, where I had to get £400,000 in sponsorship revenue, starting from a service office with nothing. That's hard to do. Now, I wanted to prove I could put my money where my mouth is. It was me that was good, not the logos I was selling for. And I did. Like, I brought in 400,000. I got Orange. Well, it's not Orange anymore, but it used to be Orange, IBM, Microsoft, like all these amazing brands to give me a lot of money to sponsor this event. And because I did that, I lost any sense of fear because I knew I was good enough. I knew no matter what happens, I could sell. So because I can do that, the fear is gone because I know that I can always sell something to make money. And I think it's a massive advantage over the people that don't have that background, because you've got to get someone else to do it because everyone's got to sell something. That's just how it works. And I think having a marketing background really helps too, because if you can sell and you can market, you can take pretty much any product and you can get it to market. So I think it'd be really ridiculous for me to say that doesn't give me a massive advantage. But in terms of how I went about it, I had an idea of what I wanted the business to look like, to feel like, how I wanted to come across to people. So I made sure it did. So I had a registered address in Regent Street, because at the time I felt like having a London agency mattered. I now don't think it does, and I've actually changed my mind about that. But for me, I felt it did matter at the time, so that's what I did. I made sure that my founding lineup of people that were on my team were people that I really respected, that were excellent, that were prepared to give me their name and their endorsements. When I went to market, when I went to pitch for clients, I really cared about it. Like I really got under the skin of what it was I was trying to do. And like when I gave them advice, it's because I'd really bothered. Like I didn't just give some, script where it was like, oh, here's my sales pitch. If I literally wrote something tailored for each one, where I'd really thought about the businesses. So I think I just went above and beyond kind of just doing it, and actually it was done to a whole different caliber, a different standard. I think if that standard was excellent, it would have been hard for it to fail. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. And so I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sort of sounds like the passion and the vision that you had were almost too strong. Like it sort of took over any fears because that's another thing I wanted to ask about, the fear you was feeling. And it sounds like the passion and the visualization of it all sort of took over that fear and sort of.
I'm really lucky that I'm not a particularly fearful person, and the longer I do this job, the more I realise how rare my lack of fear is. I genuinely don't often feel fear, so it doesn't occur to me that I will fail because I don't think I will. So I don't have that fear in my head telling me it's a risk or telling me it's a mistake. Normally because I'm quite a logical person, so I've normally made a decision based on facts. So because I've factually made a decision, it's not a risk because I've factually thought about it. Like I think if people make really crazy impulse decisions based on no substance, no wonder they feel scared. It's probably not a very good decision, Whereas if you've actually made a decision because of X, Y, and Z, and the likely outcome is Y, assuming you do this, this, and this, you're not fearful because is this the right decision? So I think for me, I've always been quite focused on what I want to achieve, but based on reality. I don't really live in this dream world of kind of pretense. It's always based on reality. So I thought Nutcracker will work because I could get my existing employer to become its first client, which would pay my bills. I would then have time to go and get new clients. Like I didn't just do it on a whim and think, oh, I've got 2 kids at home, I'm just going to gamble away security. I did it thinking, if I make this decision, that decision, that decision, the logical outcome will be this, and worst case scenario, go and get another job.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if it is your passion, then you'll be able to visualize it, and then by visualizing it, you can almost reverse engineer it, work out what needs to be done to make it how you want it to be, and then that eradicates fear. I guess that, from what you're saying, that sort of seems like the
but also it's thinking about, people always go, what if it goes wrong, what if it doesn't? It's about tempering in that natural personality people have to kind of just immediately assume it's going to fail, immediately assume it's not going to work, and actually thinking, well, say it does, say it. But I think too many people don't put the substance in. I've got this great idea to get to market, right? How are you going to get to market? Can you afford to build a website? Can you afford to do proper social media? Can you afford to go, are you the right person to go and close customers? How are you going to afford to pay someone? What's your production like? Like there's not enough substance put into it to give proper foundations. And then if you say to someone about it, they don't want to do the hard work to put those foundations in, and then wonder why it doesn't get off the ground or fails. Well, it's not a great surprise. Like you've got to put the substance in place, give it proper grassroots, and then do it. And if you're so desperate to have a business but you haven't got an idea, then it might not be the right time for you right now. So I'm saying you never will. It might just not be right now. Like not everyone's got to own a business. Like they can get perfectly great results from not doing that, and then it might well come a time they go, I know what I want to do now, and then they'll do it. Like it hasn't always got to be, right now, instant gratification. It's got to be now.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you said that, because literally as you was talking now, I was thinking about the countless DMs I get, especially over the past few weeks. People asking, "Oh, hi mate, like I'm looking to get some money. I'm 15, and I've got a few £100. Like, what do I do with it?" And it's like, I feel like saying, like, most importantly, just wait. Like you can get money now, but if you haven't got the idea or the actual desire to go out and find out how to make it, then like you said, it's probably not the right time. You're only 15, 16, and I was in the same position. So just wait, like go through education, have fun, like get pocket money, do what you have to do sort of thing, like get a part-time job, but don't be expecting to make hundreds of thousands when you're still at school. It's possible. But
it's possible, but also see the bigger picture. Like what is it how do you really want your life to be? Like, is education going to play a part in that? If it is, don't even think about anything else but getting your education. If education isn't, what skills can you get? What job can you get on the side to further it. Like, it's all about, life's a puzzle, and it's about what piece do you need to get the full picture. And I think everyone's in too much of a rush. It's like instant gratification society. It's like, if you can't get something delivered the next day, you don't want to buy it. Like, you know, if you can't get your delivery within 30 minutes, well, I'm not ordering that then. Like, it's all about instant gratification. It's got to be now, 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 now. Well, most things that are really worth it aren't instant. It's not overnight. It takes time. You know, like, people always say to me, "You're so successful." I think, well, compared to some people I'm not, compared to other people I am. Like, I'm successful for me personally because I live my life how I think is right. Yes, I have started a business. Yes, I do employ people. Yes, I have got to a stage where it's successful, but I also work my backside off. I work more hours than anyone else in the team. I take less holiday than anyone else in the team. I work harder than pretty much every single other woman in my shoes I know. So it's not a coincidence it's successful. I work really hard for it to be successful. And I think there's so many people that want this instant gratification, this instant response. That's not very realistic. Unless you're going to win the lottery, it's not very realistic. And even then, you've got more chance of being run over. Like, it takes graft and it takes hard work to get results, but then it's worth it.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And like you said, success isn't exactly a straight line. Like, isn't like you're just a successful person and everything you ever do is successful. So that makes me want to ask you, if you don't mind, you don't have to go into like details, but has there been times with this business that things have gone quite badly and quite wrong? Like, you don't have to go into details if you don't want to, but
that's
like,
all right. I'm quite open, as you probably gathered. No, that of course there has been. There's been times where it's pushed me to my absolute brink of what I think I can cope with, and I've had to really learn from that and really think about it. But for me, opting out of this has never been an option. You know, I wanted to find my own business. I wanted to grow it. I want to grow it to a stage where I can sell it, and I want to exit, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I will do. So for me, opting out of that journey while I can still be part of it has never been an option, which makes it easier because I've told myself that's what I want to do, that's what I'm committed to doing, that's what I would do. So, but there have been times where, you know, situations have occurred, you know, I can feel the heat. It drives my husband mad, but I have got this thing where I can predict the future. He doesn't find it quite so exciting, but but I'm quite good at kind of being able to predict, you know, I can feel things coming. And there's been times where I thought this is going to be a rocky 6 months, and it has been. It's felt like it's collapsing like cards, not even from a financial point of view, but from like, there's problems with employees, or it's just problems. There's been times there I've thought, I don't earn enough for this. This is just too hard work. Like, what am I doing? And then I think you've got to really dig deep and think about the bigger picture. What is it you want to achieve from this? Like, what do you really want? Do you want to opt out and then give up on the dream? Or do you want it to be a bit tough and you work through it and still keep your dream alive? And I've always wanted to keep my dream alive. That's what's always kept me centered.
Yeah, I think you're right. Your heart needs to be in it. And it's everything we've sort of said, I'm trying to tie it together. And it does seem like the overall message is pretty much, if your heart's not in it, maybe it's not for you. Or maybe, like you said, it's not the right time. Like, if you want £100,000 and you're 15, if your heart really isn't in it, then it's not the right time for you, and it's not.
Also, what do you want £100,000 for? Like, what is it? Exactly. Why do you want £100,000? Like, what is it you want that money for? Like, I think it is about having your heart in it, but I also think it's about understanding that it takes effort and hard work, and not diminishing how much you get from working for other people. Like, you get an awful lot for working with people. You get a salary, you get experience, you get to learn. Like, there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I was interviewed a couple of weeks ago by this incredible entrepreneur, Simon Scooby. He's done amazing stuff, and he left school at 15 and he made however much by a certain age. There's a brilliant book by Jamie Waller called Unsexy Business. He made his first $1 million by 18 or something, 19, whatever. But they're very much well, perhaps it wasn't quite that young, but he'd made an awful lot of money by the time he was like 23.
Yeah.
But I think those people are the exception to the rule. I think that is unusual. I think the vast majority of people that get anywhere have really slogged and worked hard. I did this podcast for a friend of mine, Martin Stewart, who owns the Money Group, and I was on this podcast and I was alongside this lady Nicola, and I just read this article where she'd been featured in something like the Telegraph, where, you know, she sold her business for 10 million quid or something like that, and it was an overnight success. And I said, wow, that's some overnight success. And she said, well, yeah, if 10 years is an overnight success, then yeah, it's an overnight success. And that's what I think people need to really take away from this is have a dream, have a vision. Like, definitely that is brilliant. But is it really your dream, or is it really your vision, or is it a badge you want to put on your coat? If it's a badge you want to put on your coat, then go and have a really good job somewhere else. If it is your vision, then it's going to take hard work. It's going to take sacrifice from your posting your Instagram. It's going to take sacrifice from nights out with friends. It's going to take sacrifice from taking holidays. You might be skint for a really long time. Do you really have that resilience to do it? If you do, then it'll be the best thing you've ever done, but you have to really want to do it. You have to really believe that you've got what it takes to make a success of something. And then when you employ people, that's a whole new kettle of fish.
Yeah, it all changes. No, but I think everything you said so far makes sense. And I think the main themes, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like sort out the ego, make sure your heart's in it, and things take time, and not everyone has the same path. I guess those would be the 4 takeaways from today's chat personally.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of talk around people either make a success. People either become very successful entrepreneurs in their 20s or in their 40s. Whereas, of course, I started Nutcracker in my 30s, so I didn't fit in at all. And I was a woman with 2 small children, so I probably, didn't really, meet the criteria anyway. But whose criteria? Like, that was right for me. That was my path.
So talking of your path, what is next for you then, both personally, if you don't mind, and then the business, or if they're sort of intertwined now?
I mean, I'm really, really lucky. I've got a really nice family, in the broader sense of family. I've also got, I'm happily married, got 2 kids. Like, I'm very fortunate in that sense. Like, my life is a good life. From a profession, I'm close to my parents, I'm close to my sister, I'm close to my in-laws. Like, I've got a lot of good people in my life. My best friend is still my best friend when I was 11. Like, wow. I've got a good life. From a work capacity, I want to do what I'm doing. I want to continue to provide an agency which gives unbelievably good marketing, which really transforms the business, transforms businesses. I want to continue to provide an environment for young people to thrive and grow. I've got quite a few young people that work for me that are at the start of their journey. And also, obviously, I want it to be a great place for people that are older. It's not just about young people. Everyone on the team is important. And I want to scale the business, and I want to get to a stage where I can sell it, because I want to have done the full journey. I want to have built the business, I want to exit it, and that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I feel so inspired now. The last hard-hitting question, if you don't mind, is legacy important to you? And if so, what do you want your legacy to be?
I don't know, really. I think legacy is important. Like, my grandparents, my dad's parents, really influenced me quite a lot. Like, they were very, very, very hard-working people. My granddad was such a hard worker. Like, he did 2 jobs. He worked in Covent Garden as a porter. Then he went and worked through the night as a black cab driver. Like, he worked so hard, and he provided me with financial stability to buy my own flat, in terms of he helped me out with deposit. So they've always been massively inspiring characters to me, and they've really taught me that it's not about your roots, it's about how hard you work that affects your destiny in your life. And they also keep me really grounded, because they were they're just really good people. So I think the impact that legacy has had on me has been amazing. I'd like to have the same legacy, that I've done something good for the world. I've done something, people that come into contact with me have felt that I've done good, I've helped people. I want a really positive legacy. I don't care if I'm known for having money or material. Like, that doesn't matter to me. It's about real things that matter. Like, have I made a difference? Have I made a difference to people's lives? Have I been a good mother where my children have got good grounding, where they're going to have good, successful lives, where they feel confident and secure and they can fulfill the potential? That kind of legacy is far more important to me than ego-led legacy.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm so glad. I like asking that question at the end, because it always gives a sort of a really good understanding of sort of the person, and it also gets me really fired up as well. Whenever we start talking about legacy, it makes me realize that, okay, my 70 years, 60 years, 80 years on this planet is going to lead into something else. You know, this isn't it. Like, this isn't just me and then that's it. I disappear off the
You
face
know,
of the earth.
and I'm really blessed. Like I have some really great people around me. Like I've had really a lot of love put into me by you know, some really special people, including like, you know, my parents and stuff like that. And I think you take stuff all the time. Like I'm really close to my sister. Like I think legacy is so much about people, and you forget how much our people around us give us that grounding, that security to be able to fulfill our dreams. And it's never a one person show, life. It's a cast, isn't it? There's lots of people involved. And I think it's about, how do we treat those people around us? How do we pass that kindness on? How do we pass that legacy on? And for me, those kind of actions really matter, rather than kind of what car I drive, how big my house is. Like, you know, that kind of stuff to me is not what governs me. What governs me is, am I doing the right thing? Can I look myself in the mirror at night? Like, how am I behaving with my life?
And on that note, I think that's the perfect way to end the podcast. Thank you so much. I'd just like to say, just before we do finish, I'd like to give you the opportunity to either give a final message or just sort of shout out all your social media handles or anything like that. Yeah, please feel free to do so.
So if anyone wants to talk to me or ask me for advice, if you're on that start of your journey, you can contact me on jenny.nighting@nutcrackeragency.com. And for all the handles, don't be lazy, head over to the website. I'm joking, it's all on the website. And I'm on Twitter and on LinkedIn, so connect with me if you want my advice.
Boom. Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. I could speak to you for hours, but yeah, that would be a bit selfish of me. So thank you very much.
Pleasure.
If only they knew, the hub for young business minds.